All right, everybody, welcome back to the Along the Watchtower podcast. My name is Ellen Walker, and as you can see, at least for the YouTube viewers, I have a chair. I have a swivelly chair and it swivels, so I might slide all over the place. I'm still trying to, get the vocal range here correct and make sure that I'm close enough and far enough and yada yada yada. So bear with me as always. However, despite that, I am excited about it. And, as always, I'm excited to be doing the podcast. Today is Wednesday, January. What day? Yeah, it's January 13th. I did not know the date. Whatever. 2021. And, oh boy, I again have to. I'm going to try to keep the see, I've already bumped my chin into it. I'm going to try to keep the monologue short because I'm still catching up to news from a couple of days ago. Um, it's just the continued fallout from the Capitol Hill siege, the insurrection. And I thought I always had I was always under the auspices that an insurrection was like an ongoing campaign, right? Like a rebellion or an uprising or you know what I mean? But it's more like an event. It's a singular sort of, right? But then you have anyway, I digress. So the continued domino effect, the fallout from that is as as I predicted, as I'm sure those of you who do watch and who do listen also understood very well. Everything really has been the press for the press to make sure to emphasize that social media had everything to do with this, and that everything that's happening in terms of the censorious actions being taken, not even against people who supported the riots or support violence, but people who simply supported even just electoral challenges, right, from a legal standpoint, or even from a conceptual standpoint. Those in the streets who just speak, people are being, and it is interesting and it's sad to see that again. And I continue to emphasize this. This is a legal and constitutionally enabled process. However controversial the president, however irritating it may be and here's the worst part. It isn't as though it really prevented everything to happen as it did. I mean, the lawsuits are being struck down left and right. The majority of them, if not all but one, failed. And it is amazing to me how the inconvenience of him merely conducting and the act and not necessarily impeding on the timeline of things as follows is so overwhelming. It creates such a cognitive, a harassment, a psychic malevolence that people go along with illegalities in the name of their irritation. Oh, we just want to get rid of them. Well, guess what? The electoral votes still have to be certified on a particular date. Inauguration day doesn't happen any sooner. So him following the process doesn't impede on the process. You have to kind of laugh. You have to kind of laugh because it is, and it's unfortunate on both sides. The animosity that leads to someone committing a physical violent act in the name of their political ideology while the legal channels are being pursued, right? So the thing that they want to happen is actually happening in a slow roll in the legal process, in the legal fashion that it's supposed to. Why are you trying to burn stuff down? What are you doing? That's not going to help you. Nobody's going to listen to you, crazy person. Right? Because that's all that's being said now, right? We'll talk about it, but I don't want to say I'm glad I'm not in a position of prestige. Obviously, I have aspirations. I'm not seeking to wield power, but people more high profile in their positions. We'll talk about an Olympic medalist having issues. We talked yesterday about the Harvard law professor who ended up being fired or not Harvard Law, Harvard professor in the Institute of Politics, excuse me. But and then it's the ongoing Silicon left continuing their Orwellian present, as we see, the clampdown go on Parler, on Twitter. I told you I didn't know that Trump had a YouTube channel. It's because I don't care. He says he has nothing to say that would interest me, really. I actually only go and take a look at things that he said once I hear or see that controversy has been stirred up. Then I'm like, okay, I actually have to see this for myself, because as we've seen, as we read right here, there's always a narrative being manufactured and constructed for the sake of clicks. I mean, really, it's ad revenue. It's money, for the sake of money. But with that being said, let's get into it. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like what I'm doing. Trying to get better every day. I got a fancy new chair now. Next is the mic. Yeah, we get chair, baby. Yes. But let us begin. Trump actually, the thing is, he addressed the nation directly after the riot happened. I believe he gave it like a small address, like, go home. They took something beloved, something that we love. But you special people, you called them special people, like they were, disgruntled, mentally ill adolescent children. You can't punish someone while simultaneously praising them. That doesn't make sense. That's what like abusive people do. Or at least very confused people. But I digress. American Military News video. President Trump addresses nation for the first time after second impeachment. Surprise! He's made so many firsts, and they're all not really good. Most of them are not really good. But he's also now the first president in history to be impeached twice. They were successful in their impeachment. We will talk about that. However, they were unsuccessful in their... they can't have it immediately. So, I was listening to a legal expert earlier, and I was listening to it I listened to one on NPR and one on Fox. You know me, I gotta try to get it all from as much as possible. And different commentators have talked about the issue, but I wanted to get it from a legal perspective, and both actually agreed that they're not exactly sure if he can be impeached after he's not president. I always was under the auspices that you couldn't impeach someone who's not president, but apparently it's happened before with a general under Grant. I may be misremembering that, but it'll be interesting to see. They're not going to expedite it, right? McConnell will not hold emergency Senate session, leaving impeachment trial after Trump's term. So we'll see. But let's just read this first. On Wednesday night, tonight, Donald Trump released a video statement denouncing political violence, including at events reportedly being planned to take place at Washington, D.C. and across the country in coming days. One wonders if it's not one following the other when you hear the FBI say, oh, a group has planned, blah, 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 and now all of a sudden everyone's parodying this. But I digress. We'll see, because at this point, why wouldn't you be a part of and or plan, right? It's like you already expect there to be... Never mind. Let me just go. Trump's remarks came about an hour after the House of Representatives voted to impeach him on a charge of inciting an insurrection among demonstrators. Trump said mob violence goes against everything I believe in and everything our movement stands for. No true supporter of mine could ever endorse political violence. No true supporter of mine could ever disrespect law enforcement or our great American flag. I can't even read this without wanting to burst out laughing. No true supporter of mine could ever threaten to harass. My Trump voice sucks. I'm still gonna do it. To ever threaten or harass. No, you know what? We're not gonna harass. We're not gonna mock. If you do any of these things, you are not supporting our movement. You're attacking it, and you're attacking our country. We will not tolerate it. Now, that is a perfectly worded statement. One that should have come when he came out and said, they took something we love. I got to stop mocking him. They took something we love, you're special people. He should have instead said this: mob violence goes against everything I believe in, everything our movement stands for. He could have just said that one sentence, and that would have in fact been better than everything he did actually say in his address. That's the hilarity of all of this. That's the indefensible part about, let me just throw that away. That's the indefensible part about all of this, right? I can speak about rhetoric and nuance and like, you know, the news being manufactured, but at the end of the day, there still is a whole lump of stuff. Try not to curse either. A whole lump of things, a plethora of issues that still need to be taken with Trump and his ability to have not only reinforced the Capitol Police and checked in on the Defense Department to see how the Guard was doing. Oh my God, you've removed you've disarmed the National Guard and sent them to traffic. Oh my God, Secretary of Defense, that's silly. I'm gonna blah blah. Like, he could have done that. He could have taken the steps to reinforce, to fortify himself from something happening, fortify that event and prevent something from happening. And then after the fact, he could have said this one sentence, bro. Mob violence goes against everything I believe in and everything our movement stands for. Instead, he calls them special and says they took something that we love, but we got to go home. See, that's indefensible. That's inexcusable. That right there is like, oh, now I see what you're doing. You're not very good at it. It's not even a surprise. He's played the rhetoric game from day one. I mean, that's always been his thing. But on this level, I don't know if it's a matter of him not being able to do it well or if he's doing this purposefully. And because honestly, there have been moments where it's like, okay, if he managed this, it's like watching a cartoon and he just happened to fall in place and into his lap. In this case, obviously, this has at least ostensibly not worked in his favor. However, to continue, Trump's remarks come a week after demonstrators stormed yeah, we know what happened. There's never a justification for violence, no excuses, no exceptions. America is a nation of laws. Those who engaged in the attacks last week will be brought to justice. Trump addressed reports of planned demonstrations in D.C. and across the U.S. Every American deserves to have their voice heard in a respectful and peaceful way. That is your First Amendment right. But I can emphasize that there must be no violence, no law-breaking, and no vandalism of any kind. Everyone must follow our laws and obey the instructions of law enforcement. Trump said he had directed federal agencies to use all necessary resources to maintain. You see what I mean? You see what I mean? You see what I mean? He could have reinforced. That's what I mean. Despite whatever the Secretary of Defense was doing with the National Guard and disarming them, sending them off to traffic, in preventing reinforcements from Maryland, Virginia, right? Whatever that was happening there, Trump in and of himself, isolating Trump as an individual and as the commander-in-chief, could have taken steps to try and prevent something from happening. This is what I mean about everyone knew something was going to pop off, and every person, each faction, each party had their own separate agenda, had their own, they were motivated by their own interests and aspirations. They had their own motivations in this. They all had skin in this to go a particular way. I truly, truly believe that. I am of the mindset that he wanted something. I think he wanted them to be successful. I don't know in what way, because it's like, well, okay, they paused it, right? But then what? Were they going to hold down the Capitol building and not get stormed by the National Guard, right? Not get This is what I mean. It's not like most of them came with firearms, so But again, Trump directed federal agencies to use all that. You're like, dude, you could have done that in the first place. What's going on? Because instead you let the SecDef run a game on you. Or was that part of the plan? I don't know. See, that's basically where my head is. It's like, okay, SecDef definitely ran a game, ran a foul, did all this, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so we know where his motivations lie. I'm pretty sure politically they're not aligned. But you're telling me Trump couldn't see this? Okay, so if he couldn't see this, he's a dumbass. And he had such a high target fixation that he couldn't see others maneuvering around him to have this go wherever they wanted it to go, or he wanted this to happen and either, I don't know, wanted the fallout to work his way, which would be dumb, or actually wanted them to be successful. But to what end? That doesn't, bro, most of these people took a dump and peed all over everything. This is really what you were depending on? And let's also keep in mind, allegedly, the Trump administration is tied to a recent failed coup. Where is it? Was it in Mexico or Venezuela? I want to say it was in Venezuela. Failed coup with some podunk PMC you're right, some mercenary group, some merc group who failed miserably, and it was all over national television. It was a disaster. So I don't think, if you're of the mindset that he was a part of that the Trump administration was a part of that, then obviously he's not. It's not beneath him to be a part of shitty coup. How can you not laugh just a little bit? Just a little bit. You gotta just chuckle a little bit. His remarks came shortly after the House of Representatives put him in the history books by yet again by voting to impeach him for a second time. And they were successful. I think they repeated that they are accusing him of inciting an insurrection already in this article. Anyway, I digress. They just go into the resolution. But yeah, they were successful. It now goes on to the Senate. Mitch McConnell said the Senate would not take up an emergency session, as I mentioned earlier, to hear the impeachment case, and will instead begin the Senate. Yeah, no copy edit. Begin the Senate side of the impeachment process on January 19th, one day before he's set to do. Dude, that would be so. Because listen, impeachments. It was like it took. They had the. I think in the other article it shows the days, but it was something like it took 28 days. There's 3 impeachments in presidential history. It took like 28 days, 13 days, and like 8 days. At 8 days is like the limit, is the minimum. It would be awesome to see the Senate mobilize to do something successfully in one day. To have a bill hit the floor of the Senate and have them pass it in one day. It would be amazing. I've never seen something like that before, ever. I feel like that would be also historic. That would be a first, and that would be something to highlight. It would be unfortunate that it would be under this context, but still amazing. Yeah, I like that jacket. So, but anyway, we're gonna go on here. Pelosi pressed the Pentagon on safeguards to prevent Trump from ordering the military, but short of the cabinet invoking the 25th or impeaching and convicting the president, it would be unconstitutional to defy legal orders from the commander-in-chief. I wanted to say that uninterrupted because I wanted to give the sort of scope of the article, but add that little piece unadulterated to the larger scale issue here, that illegalities, and I feel like near criminalities are being conducted in the name of possible or alleged illegalities conducted on the part of the president, right? So in the name of the riots, the idea of mentioning election, the idea of mentioning, for example, Senate representatives, or House Senate and House representatives being a part of the so-called sedition caucus. I hate that. Gets people fired. You can't mention it at all on Facebook. Although in their defense, they're very specific in saying that they have banned speaking about stop the steal. I hate like political catchphrases and campaigns. So I'm never one for that. Although, like I said, there are specific issues that I have in particular with Dominion voting system and the ASOG report that talks about things like the adjudication log being missing. The law in Michigan says that because they had to create a law structure in order to incorporate electronic voting that we've had issues with in every presidential election, mind you. And one of their laws stipulates that if the adjudication log is missing, right, they're supposed to investigate it. The adjudication log, as I've said multiple times, is okay. So if a vote in Michigan and certain Michigan counties that are using Dominion voting systems ends up having an error of some kind, whether it be an incorrect address or a smudge, it gets sent over to for adjudication. Adjudicators, basically fix the vote with voter intention, quote unquote, in mind, and then send it off to become a relevant vote. And the problem here is that the only sort of record of who adjudicated, who changed what, is the adjudication log. You see why that's so important? Why in the Michigan law with counties that use Dominion voting system, it's supposed to be investigated as to why the adjudication log is missing, because now you have no idea who changed what vote, how. But I digress. But that's okay. But this is not okay. Like I said, this is the Orwellian present. So Pelosi went to the military and was like, listen, if he gives you any orders, don't follow them. You can't follow them. And it's like, man, I understand what happened and where you stand on what happened. But as far as treason goes, that would be treasonous. I wonder how Sith Lord Pelosi took. No, let me stop. I wonder how Nancy took it. I'm sure she was not happy. Speaker Pelosi of California, Speaker Nancy Pelosi of California, on Friday took the unprecedented step of asking the chairman of the Joint Chiefs about available precautions to prevent Trump from initiating military action abroad or using his sole authority to launch nuclear weapons. Oh, geez. And here's the thing is that you do that knowing that everyone's going to be interested as to what you're doing and why. In a phone call to the chairman, Ms. Pelosi appeared to be seeking to have the Pentagon leadership essentially remove Trump from his authorities as commander-in-chief. That could be accomplished by ignoring the president's orders or slowing them by questioning whether they were issued legally. But General Milley appears to have made no commitments. Short of the cabinet invoking the 25th or removing Trump through impeachment in the House and conviction in the Senate, it is unconstitutional to defy legal orders from the commander-in-chief. Ms. Pelosi's request, which she announced to the Democratic caucus as an effort to prevent an unhinged president from using the codes, was wrapped in the politics of seeking a second impeachment of Trump. Colonel Dave Butler, a spokesman for General Milley, confirmed that the phone call with the speaker had taken place, but described it as informational. He answered her questions regarding the process of nuclear command authority. But some defense officials clearly resented being asked to act outside of the legal authority of the 25th Amendment and saw it as more evidence of a broken political system. Thank you. Thank you, New York Times. They're just surprising to say. Actually, New York Times, you generally have issues like Washington Post and Politico. But they said that some political leaders were trying to get the Pentagon to do the work of Congress and cabinet secretaries who have legal options to remove a president. Mr. Trump, they noted, is still the commander-in-chief. Unless he is removed, the military is bound to follow his lawful orders. Well, this is what I'm saying. There are legal channels. If he gives an unlawful order, it won't be followed. Just like if he wants to challenge the election, he has to go through the legal channels to do so. There are no other, like the only other ways are illegal, including the insurrection, if you're of the mindset that he, blah, 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 blah. So, to continue. While military officials can refuse to carry out orders they view as illegal, or slow the process by sending those orders for careful legal review, they cannot remove the president from the chain of command. That would be a military coup. Why? I mean, it's like, no, she doesn't need to be told that. But I'm glad that New York Times is covering the totality of it. Like, the issue with asking something like that is that you're suggesting that he disobey the president, which in essence is him usurping the power of the commander-in-chief. He does not ultimately have the authority to disobey the president. That lies with the commander-in-chief. If he disobeys the president, he is usurping the authority and making himself commander-in-chief. That is a military coup. You can't ask someone to do something illegal because you're afraid someone might do something illegal. That is illegal and scary. So, moving along. House impeaches Trump for a second time. With some GOP support. And here's the thing. I'm cheesing about it and beaming about it, but I'm not happy that he got impeached. I'm a history buff. I like the fact that these are tumultuous times, and you have to put things in perspective. But it's kind of cool to be around for things that are historic. And these everything since post 9/11. The post 9/11 world is historic. But unfortunately, people don't look in the context of history beyond like the last year. It's amazing to me. No. The last 4 years. They look in the scope of singular presidential terms, unless you're a two-term. Then they look at you as a whole at the end of your second term. But it's weird. It's very weird. And that could be in part because of how rapidly things are happening, or the fact that things are always happening, but now we have the technology to cover them more so. But here, the lawmakers on Wednesday impeached Trump for his role, capping an extraordinary week of violence, apprehension, and partisan brawling in Congress, just as Washington cranks up security in preparation for the inauguration. The 232 to 197 vote was historic and made Trump the first president in the country's history to be impeached twice. What an idiot. And unlike the first debate, this time the president's Democratic critics had support across the aisle. 10 Republicans joined every voting Democrat to approve the single impeachment article, which accuses Trump of inciting violence against the same federal government which he leads. Speaker Pelosi, who oversaw both impeachment efforts, said Trump's refusal to concede his election defeat and his subsequent efforts to rally supporters to the Capitol to overturn the election results amounted to sedition. Pause. You don't have to him concede. Like, he doesn't have to. First of all, he doesn't have to concede. That's irrelevant of what the numeric vote is. Here's the thing for me: if you and I have a vote, you and I have an election, right? You have the numeric superiority in the election, right? You have more votes than I do. It is there, but within the system of election that we have, I can concede. I can concede prematurely. I don't even have to wait for the vote count to stop. I can just give up. But that's irrelevant of the numeric value of your of the candidate. You have more votes, you win unless you concede. And that's the interesting thing about concession. A winner can concede if they so choose, right? Concession is not only to the loser. As far as I know, concession is not to the loser. It is a general ability enabled by the election process. Whether or not you concede is irrelevant, given that you have more votes, the electoral count will go towards you. Concession is irrelevant. See, what is it? This is the whole thing, the whole concept, the whole idea of just like, get rid of them. They just gotta get rid of them. Like, to get rid of them. No, he's using his constitutionally enabled right to challenge the election. However is available to him legally. This is why the cases were brought to judges, and judges looked at it, laughed, and threw them out. If they weren't even able to do it, they wouldn't be able to do it. That's like, what is so bizarre? Such a bizarre world. Yeah, see, this is what I'm saying. I'm not happy about it. It's like, it's historic and it's strange, and we live in strange times, but like, it's not all great. Most of it's not, actually. The president, she said, gave Congress no choice. We know we experienced the insurrection that violated the sanctity of the people's capital. And we know that the president of the United States incited this insurrection, this armed rebellion against our common country. Wow. The most prominent Republican to break with Trump was Liz Cheney, no relation, I don't think, I'm not sure. The number 3 Republican leader and highest ranking GOP woman in Congress. No, she's probably related. Who said Trump summoned the mob, lit the flame of the attack, and despite his pleas from his Hill allies, refused to call it off. What, are you supposed to get on the walkie-talkie? There's never been a greater betrayal by a president of the United States of his oath of office and his oath to the Constitution. What about the stimulus game that you guys played? Here's the thing. I will always and forever keep going back to it. He could have just as easily said what he said. Mob violence goes against everything I believe in and everything. He could have just, like, he played himself. Congratulations, you played yourself. Like, they are all playing this game of rhetoric. They all are part of this powder keg. But, like, he ultimately did not insulate himself from blame. And, like, this is all just, okay. In addition to Cheney, the 9 other Republicans who voted to impeach were John Cato of New York, the top Republican on the Homeland Security Committee, Republican Fred Upton, Michigan, Jamie Butler, Washington, co-chairs of the centrist Tuesday group with Catco, Representatives Adam Kinzinger and Peter Major, Michigan and Illinois, both war veterans, and Representatives Anthony Gonzalez, Ohio, David Valdado, California, Tom Rice, South Carolina, and Dan Newhouse. Okay. So, yeah, we already know. He's been impeached a second time. Yahoo News, we get our president or we die. Right, I think I touched on this briefly yesterday. An internal FBI report warned about a war at the Capitol a day before pro-Trump insurrectionists attacked it. WAPO reported on Tuesday. The situational report came from the FBI's office in Virginia and said the Bureau had received information indicating calls for violence in response to unlawful lockdowns. And that actually is a very curious thing that's not being really, you don't see being highlighted. And see, here's the thing. You would think that the FBI getting an internal report about a war at the U.S. Capitol would be highlighted, especially from such a distinguished paper like Washington Post. You would think people would want accountability, would want to know why, security wasn't beefed up, let alone why they ended up helping people. And now we see, police officers are having restricted duty or whatever, being fired. That's fine. But when the Bureau of Investigation gets an internal memo, and this is the same shit happening all over again. Same thing with 9/11, same thing with the first World Trade Center bombing. And then they commit things like Ruby Ridge and Waco, and they become overtly aggressive. Yeah, how is one not supposed to suspect culpability at the very least, or complicity at the utmost? This document cited an online thread with specific calls for violence, including one that said Congress needs to hear glass breaking, doors being kicked in, and blood from their BLM and Antifa slave. That's right, yeah. Antifa, so ridiculous. Get violent, the thread went on to say, according to the report. Stop calling this a march, a rally, or a protest. Go there ready for war. We get our president or we die. Tuesday's report adds another layer to the massive intelligence failure. They always call it it was just a massive intelligence failure that contributed to the storming of the Capitol, which resulted in 4 deaths. One guy committed suicide, allegedly unrelated. This is what I mean. Oh. An internal FBI situational report warned on the 5th that pro-Trump insurrectionists were planning to wage a war at the Capitol the next day. The Bureau's office in Norfolk, and this is another thing too, it's like, okay, I hate to say it, but how legitimate is this? I mean, I know the Washington Post is reporting this, but how did they did the FBI reach out and say, oh yeah, by the way, we got an internal report that says this was going to happen. I guess we should have done something about it, huh? Would the FBI want, it's like you have to weigh it. Does the blemish and the optics of it outweigh the possible weight of adding on to the idea that people use social media to, consolidate a considerable effort of violence against the U.S. Capitol? That's basically where I would think the weigh-in, right, would be the quid pro quo. Like, all right, we take this L and it looks stupid, but at the very least, I don't know. Because it's just like, not only are you getting like weird, strange reports, like about the Pentagon, the SecDef, and the National Guard. But you have the manufactured narrative that's being played out, right? Where things like this, it resulted in 5 deaths. Like, wait a minute, 2 people killed themselves. Technically 2 people killed themselves. One a Trump fan. They called him a Trump fan. We read about that. And the other a Capitol Police officer, 14-year veteran. And they're investigating the Trump fans' suicide. And it's just, let's call it what it is. The bullshit continues to expand. According to the Post, the FBI cited an online thread. Okay. It's an online thread from an undisclosed, message board. All right, let me stop. That discussed specific calls for violence. This sounds like bullshit, including one that said, "Be ready to fight. Congress needs to hear All right, we're repeating ourselves now. Supporters of President Donald Trump are reportedly shared a map of tunnels underneath the Capitol complex and locations in Kentucky, Massachusetts, South Carolina, and PA, where they could meet up before heading to Washington to attend a Save America rally that the president headlined. An FBI official familiar with the situational report told the Post, okay, so that's what it is. Like, an FBI official was like, hey, by the way, we fucked up. This is, oh my God. Told the Post that the Bureau's Norfolk office put the document together within 45 minutes of becoming aware of the thread, and that officials at the field office in D.C. were briefed on it the day before the rally. It was unclear whether law enforcement agencies were contacted. See, either this is bullshit or someone along the way was like, you know what? Because there's no way this wasn't taken seriously, especially given the rhetoric and the political leanings of the majority of our intelligence and law enforcement agencies. So to continue, the Post's report directly undercuts a senior FBI official's claim that the Bureau had no intelligence suggesting there would be violence. Okay, see, all right, so then that puts things in perspective. So then I think this is legitimate, and somewhere up the chain this went, and as it got to somebody, and either they decided to disregard it or they purposefully ignored it. Because again, when we watch video of Capitol Police removing barricades and helping people along the way and taking selfies, one has to wonder. When we hear about the Secretary of Defense removing and disarming the National Guard and turning them to traffic and telling them they can't interact with protesters in order to curtail violence, someone has to suspect something. When we see the President of the United States make a clear and very distinct statement, right, describing how mob violence goes against everything I believe in and everything our movement stands for, but when the shit went down, right afterwards said, "Oh, you are loved," and they took to, right, he coddles them. Someone has to wonder, right? All three of these people, all three of these parties I just described, all played a role somehow in screwing, quote unquote, screwing up, right? Screwing up, big air quotes, screwing up, and compounding insult to injury or causing this to happen in the first place. Nobody gets a free pass. I think everybody really had a hand in this. Everybody had something to gain from this going one way or the other. But yeah, I'll read that again. The Post's report directly undercuts a senior FBI's official claim that the FBI had no intelligence, suggesting there would be violence. It also adds another layer to the massive intelligence failure. Yes. Capitol Police Chief Steve Sund has stepped down after calls for his resignation. He told the Post in an interview that both the House and Senate Sergeant-at-Arms, both of whom have since been fired, turned down his requests that the National Guard in D.C. be on standby in case he needed backup. See, as we go up, we're finding, well, hey, the FBI's like, well, we sent this report down to D.C., right? And so the Capitol Police Chief's like, yeah, I know of it. Well, he didn't say he knows of it, but presumably he knew of it if he requested that the National Guard be in D.C. and on standby. So let's presume the FBI sent the memo. Capitol Police Chief's like, wow, this is crazy. We need to do something. So he requests that the National Guard be in D.C. Who do you think that goes to? This always goes back to the Secretary of Defense. Well, actually, it goes to the House and Senate Sergeant-at-Arms. They answer probably to someone else, and someone else who answers inevitably to the SecDef, because he was the one that disarmed the National Guard and told them to do traffic. Okay, I'm going to keep reminding you of this. Going to keep saying this over and over and over, because the manufactured narrative of the news will have you either know nothing or believe otherwise. So to continue, the Department of Homeland Security has also been accused of not taking the threat of white supremacist violence seriously enough. Okay, it's just like, all right, they're going to dovetail that. Leaders of the department's intelligence and analyst unit didn't view the pro-Trump. Oh, we're going to use that excuse. You can't simultaneously say that white supremacists are a threat that Trump is drumming up with his dog whistling, and then when stuff goes down, say, well, we didn't think that they were worthwhile. That doesn't work. I mean, it probably works for most people because most people have short memories. Sorry. Amid the lack of interagency coordination and the poor planning, this all sounds like the exact same bullshit they started spouting after 9/11. This is the exact same crap. After every event, it's always a massive intelligence failure and a lack of communication on a part of all of our intelligence agencies. The Capitol Police in Washington, D.C.'s Metro Police, denied the National Guard's offers for backup. So everyone denied the National Guard. Until the riot was well underway, Maryland Governor Hogan said last week that the head of the Guard at the federal level rejected requests to deploy the state's troops. Once you hit the federal level, you're answering to the House, Senate, the President, the House, Senate, SecDef, and the President. Before the siege, Before the siege, Trump riled up his fanatics. Wow, and they are fanatical, but like the way to take a unbiased stance. You'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong. And this is, again, it's interesting because like you use that rhetoric. Oh, we shall overcome, right? You use rhetoric of trying to stir up a visual, a picture, right, in order to enthrall. Like, yes, he was trying to energize the crowd. That's what you do. Now, again, I will always go back to this. He could have simply, actually, matter of fact, he could have said this during the rally, right? Mob violence goes against everything I believe in and everything I movement. This would have been perfect. This would have been perfect at the rally. That would have been perfect at the rally. At that point, it's like, well, he said it. He said it right at the rally before they all went crazy. He said that for them to do the exact opposite. He should see. You see what I mean? Like, everyone is culpable in some way, shape, or form. No one is above, blame here. But I'm trying to do it like not even evenly, just where it belongs. But let me stop because I'm going to go on and on and on and on and on. Let me get to. We're gonna skip some of this. I'm gonna go to the Orwellian present. Some of this stuff's just gonna have to wait. So Facebook is purging all mentions of Stop the Steal, as I mentioned. Now this is from Monday, right? We're back. We're backtracking. This is also from Zero Hedge, so heads up. Uh, as the most unprecedented purge in recent U.S. history continues, shortly after Airbnb announced that it would ban guests associated with hate groups, it was unclear how Airbnb would determine who is and isn't associated with a hate group. Although Airbnb was kind enough to inform its clients that it already runs background checks on all U.S. users when they first begin using the platform. On Monday, Facebook announced that it was removing all content mentioning "Stop the Steal," a popular phrase among supporters of Trump's claims that the election was rigged. This is why it's one of the many reasons why I hate political phrases. But we are now removing content containing the phrase "Stop the Steal" under our coordinating harm policy from Facebook and Instagram. We removed the original Stop the Steal group in November, have continued to remove pages, groups, and events that violate any of our policies, including calls for violence. We've been allowing robust conversations related to the election outcome, and that will continue. But with continued attempts to organize events against the outcome of the U.S. presidential election that can lead to violence, and use of attempts to organize events against the outcome of the U.S. presidential election that can lead, that in and of themselves is not a violent thing. And it's again the insinuation that it is. It's this dovetailing that's going, this amalgamation of the two. This is what I was saying. They're delegitimizing you. And use of the term by those involved in Wednesday's violence in D.C. We're taking this additional step in the lead up to the inauguration. It may take some time to scale up our enforcement, yada, yada, yada. This latest crackdown comes amid a raft of emergency measures to stem what Facebook has called are incitements to violence on its platform in the lead to the inauguration. If only Facebook was as diligent in stopping the spread of violence in the lead up to the summer and fall's pervasive BLM protests and Antifa riots, it probably would have avoided much of the resulting accusations of political and ideological bias that have emerged in recent days. He just couldn't help himself, could he? I mean, he makes a good point. But yeah. So, I mean, it seems it's one of those things where, the lightning rods that people kind of culminate around, like phrases like hashtag stop the steal and stuff, those are going to be banned. But purely mention, we'll see going forward. I generally don't, I outright post articles without commentary or anything of that nature to avoid, because the fact of the matter is that if I post an article from I still forgot to put up my NewsGuard, from a NewsGuard certified website, they can't say anything. I mean, they can do whatever they want. Ultimately, they've shown that. But for me, it's just a matter of insulating myself from any sort of prejudice. And it's like, hey, I'm not saying anything. This is their article. They're saying it. I'm merely posting it. All opinions are whatever people's opinions are going to be. It's irrelevant what my opinion is. I merely want to proliferate information and awareness. That's it. So Twitter ended up deleting Trump's attempts to circumvent the ban, because he tried to circumvent the ban. So what ended up happening is, interestingly enough, Angela Merkel of Germany and France's prime minister? No. France's president, excuse me. Both said that his ban was problematic. We'll read this from Fortune. Donald Trump received unexpected backing from Germany and France after the president was shut off from social media platforms, including Twitter and Facebook. Facebook, I think, still has a temporary ban on him, extending Europe's battle with big tech. German Chancellor Angela Merkel objected to the decision, saying that lawmakers should set the rules governing free speech and not private tech companies. The Chancellor sees the complete closing down of the account of an elected president as problematic, to say the least, yes. Said her chief spokesman. Rights like the freedom of speech can be interfered with, but by law and within the framework defined by the legislature, not according to a corporate decision. The German leader's stance was echoed by France Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire, who said that the state and not the digital oligarchy is responsible for regulations, calling big tech one of the threats to democracy. Europe is increasingly pushing against the growing influence of big tech. The European Union is currently in the process of setting up regulation that could give the bloc power to split up platforms if they don't comply with the rules. Good luck with that. Twitter permanently banned Trump after it decided that the tweets breached its rules against glorifying violence. The move followed similar action by Facebook. Zuckerberg said Trump's most recent post showed he intended to use his remaining time in office to undermine a peaceful and lawful transition of power. Big tech companies have come under pressure from lawmakers, civil rights advocates, and their own workers to do more to moderate content that could lead to violence or illegal activity. They long avoided such debates by claiming to be content neutral, but in the aftermath of, I know, exactly. So YouTube ban. He does have a YouTube, or at least did. Google blocks new uploads to Donald Trump's channel after the Capitol riot, citing potential for violence. And it's unbelievable. I wonder, if he posted a video simply of him standing in front of the American flag, if that would be tolerated. Google's YouTube has blocked Trump from Trump's official channel from uploading new content for at least a week. Just a week, citing the potential for violence following the deadly Capitol siege. In a video of remarks made to reporters that were uploaded to Trump's YouTube, the president said that impeaching him for inciting violence at the Capitol would be very dangerous for the U.S. YouTube removed the video. Okay, after review in light of the so kind of. Man, again the rhetoric. YouTube will also indefinitely disable comments on his channel, given the ongoing concerns about violence. The suspension is the latest by one of the nation's leading social platforms. The move came as civil rights group threatened a national boycott if YouTube does not remove the channel, which has 2.7 million subscribers. A minimum of 7 days is important and a necessary first step by YouTube. We hope they'll make it permanent, says the CEO and founder of Common Sense Media. Okay, yeah. And so Twitter shares tumble more than 10%. Nice job. And then we have Parler. We'll get to that in a second. So what ended up happening is that, downloads for like Signal and what is it? For alternative, because like Signal is a messenger service as far as I recall it being used, but with situations like WhatsApp giving out user data to Facebook, there's an ongoing battle with the Silicon left, not only over privacy but over freedom of speech. So people are just kind of done with it altogether. Now, you haven't seen this kind of effect with like Facebook or YouTube yet because their bans aren't permanent. But they've kind of let Twitter just kind of walk out into the wilderness until their shares tumbled by more than 10%. They permanently banned him. The company suspended his account on Friday, and after the market opened, the stock dropped by as much as 12%, reaching as low as $45 a share. What was it before? It dropped. 10%. Wow. Okay. Hold on. Let me check it. I gotta get a look now. I'm for our viewers. Okay, this is really slow. Okay, well it's bounced back a little after hours. But the context rather than just the content of some. Oh, okay. They're just gonna talk about the tweets. This is on YouTube. This is on Yahoo Finance, and they're gonna talk about the tweets and the escalation of violence. All right, we're not doing that. So Apple removed Parler. And so did Amazon. So then Parler sued Amazon for kicking it off the internet. The creators of the social network Parler have sued Amazon for ending a web hosting agreement after last week's riot. Parler claims Amazon Web Services severed ties to stop Parler from competing with the larger platform Twitter, and its court is asking to stop Amazon from shutting down its account, arguing that an extended shutdown would be like pulling the plug on a hospital patient on life support. Yeah, no, that's the point. They get two birds with one stone. Parler bills itself as a more permissive alternative to Facebook and Twitter, particularly as those sites have cracked down on Trump and his supporters. Oh my God! Again, they're not even cracking down on calls for violence. They're cracking down on anyone talking about challenging the election, or in particular, just using the phrase "stop the steal." That stance has earned backlash from digital infrastructure companies. Apple and Google removed the Parler app from their stores, limiting its reach. Amazon dealt an even more fatal blow when it kicked it off AWS, taking the site down altogether. Yeah, so now we're seeing the fallout as far as free speech and the ability to have an opinion, really, because even having an opinion that isn't supported necessarily by violence, and one that doesn't support violence, gets you the ire and the punitive judgments of everyone around you. So, talk radio owner threatens to fire hosts who dispute election results. A media company that employs right-wing hosts, including Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, and Dan Bongino, circulated a memo after the riots on the Hill, telling hosts to dial down allegations of election fraud or face termination. Cumulus Media sent the internal memo to employees on Wednesday, according to Inside Music Media. The Atlanta-based company owns 416 radio stations through the country, many using a talk radio format with local and national right-wing personalities. Shapiro has not contested the results of the general election. They made sure to put that there. We need to help induce national calm now, Cumulus's executive said. The company will not tolerate any suggestion that the election has not ended. The election has been resolved, and there are no alternate acceptable paths. This is the thing. No one, I think, is really talking about, and well, I mean, a lot of people are still talking about alternative paths. I know he can still win. And for me, again, it's not about that. It's about trying to identify the issues, as Nancy Pelosi said in the 2000 election, identifying and reviewing the election process, not the election results. Queens man becomes third local person arrested in connection to Capitol riot investigation. Olympic gold medalist Cleet Keller charged in connection with Capitol riot. New York City is ending multiple contracts with Trump organization over Capitol riot. The whole thing now is about affiliation, right? So let's read about the Queens man. The first two, but then New York ending multiple contracts with Trump organization over the riot, and a wave of companies cutting off donations, much of it with the GOP. It's about association. And so is the Cumulus radio station. But Queens man becomes third local person arrested. I didn't realize, yeah. A Queens man tied to the Proud Boys is in federal custody for allegedly posting threats online to send an armed caravan to Washington. He is the third local person arrested in connection with the investigation into the riot. Feds seized a weapon and computer from the Middle Village home of Edward Floria after he allegedly posted online about organizing an armed caravan to head to Washington following the riot. Investigators do not believe Floria participated in the riot. Wait a minute. And that's where it's like, yeah. You know, it's like, yeah, you earned that. You earned that. Floria was sentenced to a year in prison in 2014 after police found more than 2,000 weapons where he was living in the time on Staten Island. Also under arrest is the son of a Brooklyn judge charged with the theft of government property after he was seen in the Capitol, wearing fur pelts and police officers carrying a riot shield. Oh, my God. Also charged is Will Pepe of Beacon, an employee of the MTA, who allegedly called in sick to attend the riot and took a smiling selfie inside the Capitol. Unbelievable people. Olympic gold medalist Cleet Keller charged in connection with the riot. Cleet Keller, the two-time Olympic gold medalist, was charged Wednesday in connection with the riot. Filed in D.C. and Washington, the criminal complaint charges Keller with knowingly entering or remaining in a restricted building, disorderly conduct in the Capitol building, and impeding law enforcement. A video posted on social media by a journalist with Town Hall Media captured Keller in the rotunda wearing a U.S. Olympic team jacket. Oh my geez. This is what I mean. No foresight. No foresight. All right. We'll end with this. New York City ending multiple contracts with Trump organization. New York City is severing its contracts with the organization over the role that Trump has, whatever. Mayor de Blasio, a frequent foe, said on MSNBC Wednesday that the contracts have funneled about $17 million per year to the Trump organization and cover 4 sites, including 3 in Manhattan and 1 in the Bronx. He added that he is confident the city is on strong legal ground after Trump directed, quote unquote, the mob. Our legal team has done an assessment and da-da-da-da-da. I don't see how the two coincide. And I mean, we don't know the individual contracts, right? We don't know what deal that he had with the city. But I don't see how they can tie the two together, seeing as how I thought Trump couldn't like really maneuver or do anything with his business affiliations while he was president. But I don't know. We you know, whatever. We'll see. We'll see about that, I think, is what's going to happen. On Tuesday, de Blasio's office confirmed the Hill was exploring options to end the contract for a carousel, 2 ice rinks, and a golf course in the city's parks. Whatever. we will continue to see the rollout, the Orwellian present that is First Amendment nightmare, where affiliation or association with an idea that is unpopular can get you fired, can get you harassed, can get you banned, off platformed. I mean, all I can do is express my opinion and hope for the best. And I myself know that I have no issues, uh, you know, decrying that violence not only is wrong but ineffective as a political strategy. It's why it's not a political strategy; it's just violence. Um, oh shoot! And I had a main article about Section 230. We'll do that tomorrow. But all of this has brought Section 230 and that debate to the forefront, because the whole idea is about good faith moderation, which isn't happening when you have a bunch of biased moderators, right? That's not good faith that's happening right now, especially if it's happening mainly to one particular side or type of the argument. But I digress. Uh, you know, I denounce violence. What is it that he said, right? Mob violence goes against everything I believe in and everything that I stand for. It's just like he could have just said that at the rally, bro. There's a reason for everything, for sure. But please like, share, and subscribe if you like what I'm doing. Uh, you know, more great things to come. Take care of yourself. Be well to yourself and to each other. See you later.